Hi everyone, I'm Jessica or JJ. I am super excited to be here, so much so that my mom is actually visiting from America.
Yeah.
So this is my favorite topic to talk about when it comes to software development. So just a little bit about me. Oh, sorry, let me go over what we talked about. So let's define what psychological safety actually means. I think that this is a term that maybe everyone thinks that they know. Let's just get on the same page as to how we actually understand it. And then I actually love going over the Agile Manifesto for a little bit, and that it might be something that we all are hopefully familiar with these days, and the common mistakes and action items. And I'm gonna hopefully leave more time for the questions at the end rather than talking at you guys, so I can answer a little bit more. So basically, that's a little bit about me. I have history of having started in tech as a UX designer. Now I function as a product lead, but I've served on over 15 different product teams working with the U.S. Department of Defense. I've worked with services like the U.S. Space Force, Air Force, Navy, Veterans Affairs, and I've facilitated decision making for chief intelligence officers for multiple services. But I would say that my career highlight is that I've gone over 50 engineers to really love working with UX designers, which I think is my part of joy because actually all of my coworkers that I keep in touch with are mostly engineers, and I still keep tabs up to how they work with designers or how to do it in their teams. So psychological safety. This is actually Amy Edmonds' definition of what psychological safety is, and she defines it as a shared belief held by members of a team that the team is safe for risk taking and being comfortable with vulnerability. So not only did Amy Edmonds, write a research paper, but a lot of clinical psychologists have also done multiple studies through the years. But the one that I love to point out is Project Aristotle because it's come from Google. So obviously the branding really hits at home. And they found that they did the study for over 2 years. They analyzed over 180 internal teams and offices across from San Francisco to Singapore. They, I think, looked over, 35 different statistical models on over 250 attributes across these teams. And they found that psychological safety was the number one determining factor as to a really well-performing team. Did not have to do with an A playing A-star players or throwing more money at the team or having better managers. It really had to do with how members felt valued and respected being on the teams. And I actually like this image a little bit more because you'll see in the first image, you have the psychological safety at the top, but what I found is that it's actually the most foundational layer when it comes to working on a team and having everybody really motivated, and also to have a safe environment to create these innovative solutions that we are trying to, see a gap in the market or break the industry or, serve all these wonderful digital products and services that we're working on today. And it was called Project Aristotle because Aristotle himself said that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So it really does take a team to go far, and it really, again, doesn't have to do with an A-star player team or more money. It really does have to do with every member feeling like they're valued and feeling safe to ask questions, to bring up new ideas that might have dissenting opinions, or just like trying a new thing that the team has never thought about or something that might work that hasn't worked before. So let's talk about Agile. And the reason why I like to revisit the manifesto is because you'll see that the very first sentence under that statement says that they value individuals and interactions over processes and tools. I don't think it's a coincidence that that was the first value that these group of people had decided to write. Because if you look at the principles, 4 out of the 12 principles have all to do with interactions. Does not have to do about where your tech stack is, how you built it, how long it took, how much money it cost. It directly has to do with how people interact on a team together, right? And this is why I think psychological safety is so important, because what I've realized over the years, working with a lot of people on different products ranging from like cybersecurity to space domain to platform engineering, what I found was that how the team builds together matters more than what the team builds, because how the team builds actually affects what the team builds as well. And again, when we're trying to work in innovative environments or trying to work on innovative solutions, how are you supposed to bring up something that no one has done before if you don't feel safe to express that or to throw out an idea? or if you don't feel like you're senior enough, or if you feel like you don't know enough, or if you feel like you're not good enough, then how are you supposed to bring your best in an environment where you don't feel psychologically safe, right? I'm gonna hop to common mistakes. I wish I could talk a lot more about this, about my experiences, because there is something I actually do want to point out in action items, but let's hit on common mistakes first. So really quickly, I think these are the most common mistakes that I've seen, and the first one has to do with not addressing the HIPPO. The HIPPO means the highly paid person's opinion, or the highly influential person's opinion. And that will dominate a lot of, probably if not all the meetings that you've been a part of, or even just like discussions that you have with people, right? And fortunately, they do exist everywhere. It's always subjective, wherever you are. There's always someone who's the most influential, who everyone will sit down to or not feel as confident to speak up against, which is totally fine, but they exist, right? I think it's important just to note that and make sure that you do feel validated and not feeling safe enough to express something that you actually want to share. I do think it's important to talk about it and then to also just observe that this is happening, right? Secondly, regularly canceling team rituals. I do think predictability does matter. I do believe in treating team rituals as sacred because those are probably where the most dissenting opinions are the safest to express. So you think about your retrospectives. No one wants to be stuck in a retrospective on a Friday afternoon, I get it, but we also want to make it predictable that if somebody has something important to bring up that might be uncomfortable, well, they know that they can have that space to share it. So if everyone wants to cancel it, but this one person has something that they need to share, that person probably isn't going to bring it up, because if everyone wants to hop up early on a Friday, that one person isn't going to be like, wait, hold on, I need to have this meeting right now, right? So let's just make them predictable. Third, I've seen this a lot of people wanting to call people out because they want to try to encourage or maybe build confidence, but everybody has different thresholds of tolerance. So the way that we might communicate or the way that we process information, it's all different. Some people might need more time, some people can just think on the spot, it just varies. So try to, observe that, maybe even just be a little bit more empathetic to a teammate who might not respond in the way that you wanted them to. Action items, I do have a series of lists where it's something that you can do tomorrow, next week, or next month. I do think that there are stages, but we never have to wait, and the ones I do want to share out are the ones that you can do tomorrow. So just observe and just be real about if you might be the hippo in your meetings, you might observe that somebody else might be a hippo. It's just, I think, observing and validating and making sure that, or knowing that this does exist is totally fine. Also signaling. So one thing that I did want to share that I mentioned earlier was that whenever a new person comes onto the team, I'll always take advantage of a newbie onto the team, and I will always say, hey, you have the freshest pair of eyes. Let us know if we're looking at this way too closely. We always want to have new perspectives. We always want someone questioning them. So please, and I always say, I will bet my pension fund or my super 401k in America. But I always say, I will bet my super that not every single person in this meeting or in this group has the same understanding. I think we all think that everyone thinks the same that we think. But I think 9 times out of 10, I've never been in a private discussion where everyone had the same understanding. So I always encourage to ask the stupid questions, and I don't really think I'm stupid. I think they're just clarifying questions, but it's always a resetter of making sure that everyone has the same understanding. So it's always an advantage. And snubbing interruptions. This happens all the time. It doesn't have to be confrontational. I notice when I interrupt, I'll be like, I'm so sorry, I just interrupted you. Can you continue what you wanted to say? Also, when other people interrupt each other, I'll be like, I'm so sorry, I really want to love what, I want to hear what you're saying, but can you just finish, can you finish what you have to say first, and let's just go right back to what you want to say. I just really want to hear and complete his thought. Super simple, really low stress. And then lastly, just talking about psychological safety. Because unfortunately, again, I do think psychological safety is that foundation layer, and your team values, whether they're formal or not, they exist, unfortunately. But your rituals can't be as good as your team values. Your team values really can't be good as your psychological safety of the team. So there we go. Questions? Let's see this one. Yeah.
Nice, thanks very much. So we do have a bunch of questions. First one I've got here is, how can the HIPPO be addressed?
Yeah, so unfortunately, this might be something with your leadership, or if you're not in leadership, this is something that you can talk to your managers. I think that this is just a really important conversation to be had, no matter how senior you are, just as a person who works with other people in a company that's trying to make revenue, trying to mitigate waste, and use their resources efficiently. Totally fair game. If I had a direct report saying like, hey, I feel like there might be someone who's just dominating conversations, I would want to know, how can I support you? How's this happening? And how can I be aware? I think any good leader would be really open-minded and want to hear how they can make your work life a lot easier as well.
So thank you. The next one I got here, I think it came in before you started talking about action items, but I'll ask it anyway. How can I, as an employee, ensure psychological safety in the workplace?
I wouldn't say it's your responsibility to spearhead that, but I would invite you just to take it upon yourself to talk about it. This is something that I talk about with every team that I'm on. No company or direct report or CEO has ever asked me to do this. I know that when I want to walk into work on my team, I want to have fun. I want my coworkers to have fun. I want to do a good job. I want to put out good work. And I know that this is really important. So I actually just do this on my own, all of my teams, when I notice that something goes off, because it's paid its dividends. And I mean, I'm happy to give you slides as well and all the resources that are cited and just take it and run with it. Because it honestly, it's when I say for high performing teams, yes, high performing, but I like to use happy performing, because high performing comes from the happy performing, but that happy performing just opens the door for so many more possibilities. So yeah, just do it on your own. Just talk about it with your team.
Awesome, thank you. The questions keep coming in, so I'm not going to be able to get to all of them. How do you address an overall toxic environment?
Well, that was a juicy one. Gosh, how much time do we have? This is tough. So, okay, it might go a little bit over time, but I want to share how this actually psychological safety came to my plate. So it was my first job coming into, so I was living in Spain, I moved to America, I got this job and it was with the US Space Force with this like really established Silicon Valley consultants. And one of the consultant, so you can imagine, you know, as a junior designer coming from a different country, I'm originally from America, I was living in Spain, but blah, blah, blah. Anyways, I was nervous. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I haven't been working in tech in America. I just started UX design. What is going on? I'm just trying to learn. And so I had this one product manager who came from this really, you know, highly regarded Silicon Valley consultancy. And it was so tough because it just got really bad to the point where, you know, we'd be screen sharing our screen and I was drafting this email to send off to our user base. And she was just criticizing like every word I was writing. And it got to the point where she was even criticizing like an article. And I was like, I'm not crazy. Like, this is pretty intense. So I spoke with my design parent. He was from the consultancy, and I just kind of had to check my reality a little bit, being like, hey, am I over dramatizing this? Am I just really nervous? Am I being really sensitive? And he, you know, validated, no, unfortunately, this is just how she is. And then fortunately at that time, we had a new product manager who was replacing her, and he was shadowing our team for 2 weeks. And so he was just, you know, in our meetings, observing. And then the first week that he took over as a PM, when she was phasing out, he said, hey, let's talk about psychological safety. And I was like, oh my goodness, that is it. I did not feel psychologically safe. I felt so nervous every day coming into work because I couldn't even write an email right in her eyes, right? And so he dedicated he dedicated 30 minutes to talk about psychological safety, much more in depth than a lightning talk. We actually had a session where we mutually shared experiences of environments where we felt psychologically safe and felt psychologically unsafe. And then it was just a core value in our team that we just revisited week after week. And again, no one told him to do this. And this was not like paid thing with like part of our SLAs or anything that our customer base was, you know, paying for, but it was so sorely needed. And it was so highly valuable to our team that during every stand-up, we actually had like our psychological safety statement a part of the stand-up deck that reminded our team about what was important to us, about why this was important. And from there, I just carried it and took it. It was just something you can't ignore once we talk about it. It's like every time I went to a new team, I just saw something was off. I was like, oh, this isn't really right. We talked about it. We developed more empathy. It just became a core value. And yeah, it was just doing that in itself. It was just kind of magic on its own, really. Because it really, you're just building empathy for each other, right? Like no one wants to come into work feeling like you're not respected. You can't share your opinions. You want to try something funky. Like, especially with agile, and you're trying to do all this fancy stuff. But yeah, it's just, I would say just do it on your own. It's worth the time for yourself and for everyone. I promise you.
Awesome. Thank you.